Hello and welcome to the Fun Kids Bookworms podcast. My name is Bex. I love books and oh boy, I've got a lot of them today. Now, there are so many books out at the moment. So this week we have 4 brilliant authors. We've got Penny Boxall, we've got Liz Hyder, and we've got JLS star JB Gill. But first up, we are stepping into The Great Theatre Rescue by Judith Eagle. I loved this book so much. It's a tale of secrets, ambition and adventure set against the backdrop of 1930s London. So it follows Charley. She's a pretty cool young girl and she embarks on a journey to save the theatre that she loves and lives in. So I'm joined right now by Judith Eagle. Hey Judith, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
You too. Oh man, I'm so happy whenever you come into the studio because I love your book so much. Now, as I've mentioned to you just before we turned on the microphones, I am so near the end of your book, but not 100% near the end of it. So, I mean, first of all, I love it. It's excellent. I'm having a great time. But secondly, no spoilers, please.
Okay.
So, The Great Theatre Rescue. I love a theatre. I love the old-fashioned aspect of this story. We're in 1930s London. Can you tell us who we meet?
Yes. So we meet Charley Wren, who lives in the Wren Theatre in London, 1930s Soho, with her dad, Toby. She loves everything to do with the theatre. She dreams of being a famous tap dancer when she grows up. Her fellow performers, Violet the Voice Nightingale, the Skip Sisters tap duo, the Tumbling Twins, who are acrobats, and Wilbert Heaven, who plays the trumpet, are more like family than friends. But then one day her dad, Toby, is sent away on urgent business. She is dispatched to a really harsh, horrible boarding school. And it's while she's here that news reaches her that the theatre has fallen on really hard times and is threatened with closure. So she and her new and rather mysterious friend, Gill, decide that they have to escape the boarding school, get back to London and save the theatre. But little do they know, there is a very sinister figure called Badger Man lurking in the shadows who will do anything to stop them doing what they want to do, saving the theatre.
Oh my goodness. Now, we meet so many great characters in this book. Aunt Constance is somebody that you think is going to be a baddie, but I'm not too sure. I don't know. I believe in her, I think. Now, she must have been an interesting character to write because she plays her cards quite close to her chest.
Yeah. So I really like complicated characters. So nothing's black and white. Everyone's got, well, especially in this book, lots of people have got sort of mysterious backgrounds, so you don't really know. So I'm not going to give anything away about what Aunt Constance's motives are, but she is a really interesting character and things that have happened in the past influence the way she behaves now.
And Charley, of course, is our hero here in the story. She loves the theatre so much. She wants to perform. That's her thing. She wants to be a dancer. And she loves the lifestyle that her and her dad have got. They live in this little house in Soho and they just have a lovely time together.
They do. They love the same things. They love singing and dancing. They've been to see the film 42nd Street 5 times. He's a trumpeter, so he now knows all the tunes, and that's how she's taught herself to dance, by watching Ruby Keeler's moves in 42nd Street. They have a great life together, and they love the life in Soho, which back in the day, in the 1930s, was a really exciting place to be. There were more than 40 theatres in London.
Wow.
With plays and operas and ballets and variety shows, and Soho was the centre of jazz, so there were loads of exciting jazz clubs there. So she lives in, quite in exciting times, and she's friends with all sorts of different people.
Yeah, I do. I love that era of London because you mentioned like the tea house. Is it Lyons Tea House?
Yes.
That she goes to, and the old-fashioned theatres and stuff. There was something, I feel like there was a buzz around London at that time, just like lots of theatres, like you say. Did you have to research them at all? Did you check out old archives?
I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research about theatres in London. I found out that it was a really exciting, glamorous time. People like Fred Astaire would come. I think he came with his sister Adele. This was before Ginger Rogers, and Fred Astaire and Adele took London by storm, and they performed their musical Funny Face about 250 times, and royalty flocked to see their shows. And as you'll read in the book, Duke Ellington came to London in 1933, which sort of fitted perfectly with the story. And him, when he travelled to Europe and London, he'd been going through a bit of a difficult phase in America. He'd lost faith in the music industry and he wasn't happy with his label. But then he came to London and he performed, and the reception was rapturous. People applauded. Apparently it was described as applause beyond applause. People clapped for 10 whole minutes. And he famously said that coming to Europe gave him his groove back, and he found his spirit again. And he went back to America and wrote better and more music.
It must have been such a fun book to write. Did it make you think that you would have liked to be on the stage yourself?
I would have loved to be on the stage. When I was a kid, I really dreamed of having a theatrical future.
Right.
But I was really shy and really nervous. So a lot of my singing and dancing happened at home. But I was very fortunate that my mum and dad took me to the theatre a lot. So I know that just watching is just as good as performing. I literally used to get tingles watching shows, like every nerve and cell in my body would be sparkling. I was also in opera club when I was in year 7, which meant our maths teacher, Mr. Whiting, once a week at lunchtime, he'd do an entire opera with us, and he'd jump on the classroom tables and act it all out. And once we'd done the whole opera, then we'd go to Covent Garden to see it. And so all operas are really tragic and full of emotion. So imagine a whole load of years. If mainly girls, the boys weren't that interested in it, so it's mainly girls that were in opera club. We'd sit right at the back in the gods on the back row, and we'd all be in tears, but we'd be feeling that emotion. So I wanted with this book to capture that excitement, that performance that live performance gives you.
I love the idea of an opera club. That's incredible.
Brilliant. We did La Bohème and Madame Butterfly and Aida and Carmen. Wow. And it would be over a term, every month, every week, he'd act it all out, so we'd get to know all the characters. And so then by the time we went, we knew the story, we knew what was going to happen.
Oh, what a hero. I love,
yeah, he was brilliant.
I loved the West End when I was a kid. So I'm from the North East, but we'd come to London, and seeing a show would be the most incredible thing to go and do.
Yeah.
And even reading your book, and you mentioned places in London, Cambridge Circus, I got off the bus to get here earlier on today. Like all of these places, and there's something sparkly about it and exciting, because it's like, it's an atmosphere, isn't it? It's a buzz. Yeah, and for Charley as well in the book, it's just like, this is where she lives. It's even better.
Exactly. It's her place, and she feels really comfortable there, and she knows it. And I grew up in the suburbs of London, so I can remember coming in with my mum and dad, shopping and performances. And then I went to college, St Martin's, an art school, which at that time was in the centre of London near Soho. Mm-hmm. I was a fashion student, so I'd rush around to fabric shops and go to cafes for my lunch. So I got to know it then, and then subsequently my work's always been in London, so I feel like I know the geography of it really well. And then fictional London, the books I've read set in London, going right back to Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist, Bleak House and David Copperfield. They're all there, bubbling away under the surface.
I love it. And if you were to run your own theatre in London, and you could programme it, and you could have anybody on the stage, past or present, who would you have on there, do you think?
Oh, goodness. I think I would have the Nicholas brothers. So they were this fantastic tap dancing duo from back in the day. They grew up in Philadelphia. They were self-taught, so their mum and dad had a theatre, and they used to watch the African-American tap dancers performing, and they used to watch their steps, and their dad said to them, when you dance, use your whole body. So they perfected this form of dance that I think was called flash dance, and it was a sort of tap dancing that incorporated tap and ballet and acrobatics, and they were absolutely amazing. By the time they were called Harold and Fayard, and by the time they were 11 and 17, they were dancing at the Cotton Club in Harlem in New York with the latest jazz bands.
Wow.
And if anyone wants to see them in action, I advise go to YouTube, type in stormy weather, jumping jive, and you'll see them. Or just type in Nicholas Brothers greatest tap sequence ever, and you'll see it. And their signature moves were leapfrogging down the stairs, landing in the splits each time.
And I think I've seen this, yes.
And jumping up without using their hands.
Yes.
And apparently Fred Astaire told them he thought it was the greatest dance of all time. And they claimed that they'd done it without even rehearsing. I mean, I don't know if I can believe that, but that's what they said.
Oh yeah, I have seen that, and it is incredible to watch. And it's one of those things that you watch and you think, I could not do
that. Never.
That's a special kind of person to be able to do that. Yeah, that is incredible.
So I'd have them, and an amazing jazz band to perform with them.
Oh my God, I'm going to come. I'll be at your theatre. If you open it up, I'll be there. Hopefully it's the Wren Theatre. Thank you so much for telling us about The Great Theatre Rescue. I absolutely love this book, and hopefully, and I'm pretty sure everybody else will as well. So thank you so much, Judith.
Thank you.
Oh, I love anything written by Judith Eagle. Now, next up, we're staying in London, only this time it's the 18th century. In Penny Boxall's book, Letty and the Mystery of the Golden Thread, we're going to meet Letty Breech, who's eager to embark on a European adventure. I am joined right now by author Penny Boxall. Hey, Penny, how you doing?
Hello, lovely to be here.
Well, thank you so much. We've never chatted before. I think you're new to Fun Kids, is that right?
I am, yes. I've just had my debut novel published by Puffin, which is absolutely so exciting for me. So, it's lovely to be here.
Yeah, well, the new book is Letty and the Golden Thread. It's a bit of an adventure in the 1700s, and I don't read many books set in the 1700s. So tell me about this.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons I wanted to write this story, actually, because I think the 18th century is so interesting. And it was something I've been interested in since I was a teenager, and I went to a ball set in 1764, which was just, ridiculous. We all had big wigs and very wide skirts, these kind of panniered skirts. So, that was that was really a kind of new world for me. So I wanted to write about this for younger readers. It's about Letty Breech, who is 12, and she's grown up in a beautiful old museum house full of amazing ancient artifacts. Her father is a great collector of objects, and he is falsely imprisoned on the charge of forging a famous object. So Letty knows this is false, and she goes on an adventure through France and Italy to try and clear his name of forgery, which was a really terrible crime in the 18th century. So it's something that kind of feeds into all these interests of mine.
Yeah, did you have a big knowledge of antiquities then before you wrote the book?
I've worked in several museums. So my first job when I left university was working at the Wordsworth Trust up in the Lake District, which was absolutely wonderful. So that was a really good link between poetry. I did a creative writing master's and museums. So I learned a lot about Wordsworth's life through a lot of the objects that he owned and used every day. And then later I worked in the Ashmolean Museum, and I was focusing particularly on textiles there. So one of the things I really enjoyed writing was some of the clothes in this book. Lots of wonderful clothes, and particularly the character Gio. He's always very well dressed, beautiful Italian tailoring. So I really enjoyed that.
Was there a particular place you liked writing about as well?
I loved writing Lamb Place. I wanted to grow up there myself. So I kind of wanted Letty to have this opportunity to live in Lamb Place. It's this kind of tall London townhouse, and it's absolutely crammed with antiquities, and also with her pet magpie, who's called Diderot. So it's just kind of this glinting hodgepodge of incredible stuff, really, and it's quite easy to get lost in there. So I really loved writing that location. But it's all that Letty's ever known. So part of the kind of impulse behind the story is her going on this quest and going on an adventure for the first time. And so I really loved researching what 18th century Paris would have looked like, what Versailles was like in this time, and on down through the rest of France and Italy, particularly Venice was wonderful to write about in the 18th century.
Oh my goodness, did you get a little holiday there and pretend it was research? Because I would have done that.
Sadly, I haven't been for a few years to Venice. I have been lucky enough to go, but yeah, I didn't quite manage a research trip this time. But I did go to Rome while I was writing Letty, and that absolutely kind of fed into the story and her desire to be there amongst all the antiquities.
Was there anything that surprised you about Paris and Italy in that time?
Oh gosh, so much that I couldn't begin to say it. One of the things I found quite hard, but also interesting, is that the architecture would have been completely different from the Paris we know today. It would have been much more kind of rambling and sort of ramshackle. So that was kind of fun to write. I also loved doing that in the London scenes as well, kind of getting the sense of old London. Yeah, basically, I like set dressing. That's kind of what I've really enjoyed about this novel.
Yeah, was there a particular character as well you loved? And also, how did you kind of like think of Lettuce as a character? How did you kind of like come to that?
Well, it started with her name. I think Lettuce is such a great name. It's a really beautiful name. It means joy, and it's related to names like Letitia and other names of that type. But I just love the fact that it also sounds a little unusual, and it sounds a little bit like a lettuce. So I kind of wanted her to have this lovely, lovely name. And then I thought that the situation she grew up in should be as unusual and as lovely as her name. I really enjoyed writing Diderot the magpie. He's great fun. He's very interested in shiny objects, so he's always on the lookout for his next treasure. And also Gio, he's great fun. He's sort of a foil to Letty. Letty as I've said, she's very sort of book smart, but she's not done any travelling, even though she's longed to all her life. And Gio is also very smart, but more street smart. And he kind of knows a bit more about the world than Letty does.
Oh, it's such a fun idea for a book, and it's so exciting. Is there one bit in particular for all of us to read and to look out for that you think everybody's going to love?
Ooh, I'm going to have to say the opening. It starts in a different museum, and it's when Letty has just been discovered there. She's a very young child, and she's wandering through these corridors of amazing artifacts, and she is found there. And that's the sort of origin story of how she becomes Par's daughter. So I think that's quite atmospheric, and yeah, I really enjoyed writing that part.
Oh, amazing. Now, before we let you go, we have a little quick fire round of questions, if that's okay.
Oh, yes.
Excellent. Okay. So, no, don't you worry. There's no right or wrong answer. So, first one is super easy. Books or Kindles?
Oh, books.
Yeah, why not? Heroes or villains?
Oh, you need both. So heroes, but I want the kind of other side of the coin as well. So you can't have a hero without a villain. They're a 2-in-1 package.
Excellent. Yeah, good point. Film adaptation or TV adaptation?
I think TV, because it gives more space. So, if something's like 6 parts or whatever, that gives a bit of room to the story. Think TV.
TV. Poetry or prose?
Oh, don't make me choose.
This is just for you. I don't ask everybody this one, but yeah, I thought,
Let's go for poetic prose.
You know what? That's a lovely answer. I'll give it to you. Beginnings or endings?
Oh gosh. I, again, love both. I love an ending that harks back to the beginning and everything is changed and kind of more wonderful and a little bit more sad. So I might go for endings.
Okay, yeah, that's a nice answer. Hogwarts or Narnia?
I just want all of these. So ideally, Hogwarts the building set in Narnia the grounds as a sort of lovely garden.
I've never had anybody say that before. That's a great answer. Yeah, Hogwarts in Narnia. Laptop or write by hand?
Oh, laptop. Yeah, it's slightly strange because this whole novel is set in the past when they were using quills, but I've always liked writing on laptops, much quicker. And I also like that it's usually legible. My handwriting is pretty shocking these days.
Do you write 9 to 5 or when you fancy?
Usually 9 till lunch, and then I edit in the afternoons. But that can change depending on what's going on in the day.
That's a very organised way of doing it. I like that. Paddington Bear or Winnie the Pooh?
Well, my mum grew up in Ashdown Forest, very near kind of the 100-acre woods. So I've always had an absolute fondness for Winnie the Pooh, the books. But in terms of films, it's got to be Paddington.
That's the thing, right? The films have really swayed it in Paddington's way. Can't help that. And finally, the last one is salt and vinegar or cheese and onion?
Oh, 1,000,000% salt and vinegar.
Yes!
Letty is probably about 80% salt and vinegar fueled. So, yeah.
We love to hear it. Yes, salt and vinegar is the correct answer for that one. I 100% agree with you. You could say anything for the others. Well, you know what, Penny, thank you so much for telling us all about your brilliant brand new book. And also congratulations, because I know it's your debut and it's done so well.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was so delighted it's Black Veil's Book of the Month. So that's just been the most wonderful gift. I'm really excited about the next adventures.
Brilliant stuff. Well, hopefully we'll see you in person for those ones.
Fantastic. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much to Penny Boxall for telling us all about Letty and the mystery of the golden thread. Next up, it's a brand new author to Fun Kids, Liz Hyder. Now, her new book, The 12, takes a turn for the worse when Kit's sister Libby mysteriously vanishes and nobody else remembers that she exists. It genuinely is an incredible way to start a book. This book just won an award, the Cafe Nero Children's Award, so let's find out more. I am joined right now by author Liz Hyder. Hey Liz, how you doing?
I'm good, yeah. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. And I'm going to put it out there. I've just finished your book, The 12, and it is an absolute dream. I absolutely loved it. So thank you so much for bringing that into the world.
Oh, thanks, matey. That's I feel a little glow of warmth all over.
You're so welcome. And also, I mean, it's not just my opinion, it's the opinion of many more important people because it won quite a big award, right? It won the Nero Award.
It did, yeah. It won the Nero Book Award for children's fiction, which I still feel like I've made that up as I say it, because do you know what? I was just so chuffed to be shortlisted, but to win, yeah, I was rendered silent, which is a rare thing indeed.
Did you get to have a little award ceremony? Did you win a certain prize?
March, actually. There's an award ceremony on the 5th of March. So yeah, I get to go along and wear like a swanky dress, and it'll be really fun.
Oh, I'm excited. Hopefully you'll get some nice food as well. Maybe some good crisps.
Hopefully some good crisps. Crisps are important. It'll be really fun. I really hope they give me a really tiny little trophy that I can put somewhere in the house as well.
I mean, I love that you're going tiny. I'd want absolutely massive, to be honest, but that's clearly the difference between you and I. I'd be displaying it everywhere.
Like a little tiny subtle one that I can put on like a windowsill or something.
Oh, okay, demure. Okay, I appreciate this. Now, for anybody who doesn't know about the 12, I mean, where do we start? Let's kick it off with. It opens quite quickly with Kit looking for Libby.
Yes.
So what is happening to Libby?
So Kit is 15. She's been dragged away for a kind of winter holiday by her mum to sort of a caravan park in the middle of nowhere on the Welsh coast. And Libby is her younger sister, and she vanishes on winter solstice. But she doesn't just disappear. She's blinked out of existence, and Kit is the only person who remembers her. Yeah,
so she goes to her mum and says, Libby's missing. And her mum is like, well, who's Libby? No, you're having one of your crazy dreams again.
Yeah, that puts a little shiver up my spine, because it is that thing of how do you make other people believe you when you sound like you're crazy? Yeah, I really feel for Kit in that moment, because it's like, what do you mean you don't remember my younger sister?
It's absolutely terrifying. But I mean, luckily she finds Story, and Story does remember seeing Libby recently.
Yeah, so Story is a boy who's a little bit older than Kit, and he lives on the caravan park. He sort of lives a bit under the radar. And he also does remember seeing Libby as well, for reasons that will kind of be revealed later in the book. But yeah, the two of them have to kind of team up to find out what's happened, to try and get Libby back and to try and heal a rift in time.
Now, I don't want to give too much away with the story, but it does weave together a lot of different genres. I think you've got fantasy, adventure, maybe a little touch of romance in there as well, but it's just so many things all in one book. Was it quite tricky to get the balance right?
I don't know, really. I just sort of made it up. I did want it to be sort of a fantasy, but also that it felt very rooted in real life, so that it is set in a real village in Pembrokeshire. You know, that kind of landscape is kind of real, but yet there's also this kind of fantasy element, that there is this like time slip adventure that is there, but rooted in reality. I wanted to have kind of those things sort of running along parallel to each other, really. And
do you want to give anybody, I mean, again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but do you want to give anybody any advice on why it's called The 12?
Yeah, I mean, Kit and Story sort of have to team up to try and find out what's happened. But in order to kind of unlock the key, really, of what's happened, they have to find out who and what the 12 are, for they sort of hold the answers. I always want to go doom, doom, doom at that point.
We'll add it in, don't worry, it's fine. So yeah, they have to kind of figure out why Libby's gone missing. And also there's this separate story about Kit being bullied at school, and that's a whole other big deal in her life as well.
Yeah, and I wanted that to sort of be lingering. So although she's quite far away from home, you know, she's from London, but she's sort of been taken away to sort of the wild Welsh coast in the depths of winter, but that she's got her phone with her, and that bullying is sort of insidious, that it's there and that it's present, but it's also the bully who's texting her is doing it in kind of a really passive aggressive way, that actually it is the context of those texts. It is the gaps in between the words that are the threat. I wanted it to be quite clever. So yeah, poor Kit is not having a great time with her sister going missing, a rift in time, and a bully to boot.
Oh my goodness, I know. She's absolutely having a terrible old week, isn't she? Yeah, the bully thing is really interesting, because you're right. It's the messages. If you were an adult or a parent to read them out of context, you'd be like, oh, she seems nice. She's wishing you a Merry Christmas. But it's actually not that. It's, you know, stuff like, oh, I hope you get what you deserve.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you know the background, of course, that terrifies Kit.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted it to be that way, because it is hard to talk about bullying. I think it is sometimes difficult to talk about it, but it is important to talk about it. It is important to talk about it to, you know, a trusted adult, or, you know, to talk to Childline, that there are options open to you to talk about it, because it can crush you, you know. And I really wanted that to be kind of an important part of the story, and so that Kit sort of has to learn to to speak out, really.
Yeah, and she does to Story, who is such a wonderful character. What a hero! What a lovely, lovely character to have as well.
I'm very fond of Story. Yeah, I mean he changes his name as well, because Story is quite a whimsical name for a character to have. But he's named himself after a really amazing real life guy, an American astronaut called Story Musgrave, and that is his real name. And he's incredibly cool. Go and look him up. He's a polymath. He's the most educated man to ever go into space. He is brilliant and very cheeky and a bit mischievous, and everyone loves him. So I love the idea that kind of Story has named himself after this really kind of cool astronaut, basically.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him before, but I love the name Story. I mean, what a move. You've also got a lot of nature themes in here as well, which obviously for everybody reading is so important to look around you and to be aware of what you're doing to the world.
Yeah, definitely. And also that element of hope as well. We know so much more about the environment, about conservation. We know so much more about how things are interconnected than we used to, or even when I was growing up. There's a lot of stuff to be hopeful about, and I think it's really easy to get bogged down and be like, oh, what's the point? Just give up. And it's but actually I think hope is a really empowering force, because it means that you do something about it. You're not passive. You do something active about it. We can all make a difference, and the more of us that are making a difference, the bigger that impact is. So I wanted hope to be kind of a key part of the book as well. And the story sort of says, let hope be your guide at one point. And I think that is such a kind of key thing. I really hope people take that away from the book. It's a book to be hopeful about. Yeah,
oh my goodness. Story is the kind of character that you want as your own friend in real life. You know what I mean?
I do love him a bit. Yeah, I do. I really love him. I'm very fond of both him and Kit, and they're kind of their friendship and how they sort of support each other. And they're thrown together in really sort of bizarre circumstances because, Kit's sister's gone missing. But I really like how there's strong, that each of them are strong characters on their own, but I don't think they necessarily realise it. And it takes sort of seeing themselves in the reflection of someone else's eyes to realise that actually they're an important person in their own right, that they have value, and that they are a kind of strong people in their own right.
Absolutely. And are there characters that you'd like to visit again, or do you think this is the end of their journey?
I mean, it's always tempting but no, I've moved on. Sorry. I do love them. I would love to kind of think of a way of revisiting them, but I think it would be kind of impossible, really, given it's hard to talk about without spoilers. But given the end, it would be challenging to bring them together again.
Fair. Yeah, great. I'll leave it there. I'm not going to let you say anything else. Liz, thank you so much for telling us all about the 12, and it's out right now, and congratulations again on the award, and I hope you have the smallest trophy you could possibly desire.
Why, thank you very much.
Last but not least on this week's episode of the Bookworms podcast is JLS star and Strictly Come Dancing star JLS Gill. He's returning with the second book in his action-packed Ace and the Animal Heroes series. Let's find out more. I'm joined right now by, I'm gonna try and put it out there, boy band legend, Strictly hero, author, presenter, JB Gill. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks.
So tell us, you've got the second book of Ace and the Animal Heroes. I really, really enjoyed the first one, so I was so happy that you've got a second. And it's the wacky weather mystery.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, thank you. Firstly, obviously, the first book was kind of a labor of love. It took about 8 years from start to finish to complete, not because of the writing, but just in terms of developing the ideas and, the right time to publish it and all that sort of stuff. And, I was obviously so excited to be able to release this second one, which is, my second with Puffin on Penguin Random House. And, also my second time teaming up with Becca Moore, with the illustrations as well. And as you say, this is all about the wacky weather mystery, which is something that I've always been, I guess, quite vocal about, in terms of farming and the farming industry. One of the things that you have to contend with, which is really, really difficult and people don't always often appreciate, is the weather. And if you have good weather, then that sometimes results in a bountiful crop of whatever. But if you have bad weather, and that can also be sun, so it's not just the fact that it's sunny means that it's good. If you have too much sun, that's also bad. So just being able to having to contend with that and manage that, and I wanted to incorporate that into the main sort sort of like theme for the book, and Ace, and of course the animal heroes, and the other characters like Bear and Gaga and Gigi as well, how they come to grips with sort of this changeable weather that's sprung upon them because of Councillor Crabbington's antics. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to write, and I really enjoyed the process. And as I say, I hope I was able to convey some of the difficulties that can be faced within the industry with the weather.
It's so much fun to read as well, because I've got to say, you think of farming and you think, oh, well, sunshine is fine. Like, as long as it's sunny, I guess it's going to be okay. Things can grow. But even in the book, you realise things can get too warm and too hot, and the animals did not love that either.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that we've had to manage, over the years on the farm as well. We've, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, when we just received our turkeys. We usually get them sort of in July. And of course they come and they're, not even a month old. They're really, really small. And I remember we had a really, really hot summer. And I had to basically get water delivered in order to sort of mitigate the hose pipe ban and all that sort of stuff. And it's a real nightmare trying to feed lots of animals or water lots of animals when you're going through sort of a shortage or a drought or anything like that. So, it was really eye-opening. And also a few years ago, I took a trip to Zimbabwe. And of course, they're really feeling the effects of climate change and, warmer temperatures, and, globally and so on. And, lots of sort of second and third world countries, experience the same. And, you don't really realize it until you go there and you see it. And, for me, as I say, it's a real challenge, even in, a climate like ours, and you sort of seeing the blur between seasonality and, lots of different things that I think, can get very, very technical, but on a personal level, it's something that I've experienced, and I wanted to talk about it. And as I say, kind of get that across in the book.
Oh, you absolutely do. And it's really interesting. Obviously, reading the book, it's like a book for kids. It's a fiction book, but clearly you know what you're talking about, which is very helpful. You put your stories in there. But one thing I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing you don't have magic Wellingtons that make you speak to the animals. Could that be right?
Well, you never know. I mean, little could be real. Certainly my kids, I'll probably have you believe that they do. But yeah, no, I personally don't. And that's one of the things I remember with the first book. It was one of Dr. Dolittle was one of my favorite films growing up, and Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and films like that. And for me, it's really interesting to sort of, understand like how animals are and how they behave and why they behave that way. And, how amazing would it be if they could actually just tell you what they were thinking, tell you what they were feeling? So I wanted to incorporate that in the first book, of course. And, it's great. I think, one of the things that inspired me as well with that is children have I believe have a unique relationship with animals as well. Like my little boy Ace, when he was just a toddler, I remember we rescued a cat, and to all intents and purposes, this cat was feral, didn't want to be touched, didn't want to be stroked. I could barely give it food. If I put my hand in the cage, it was ready to swipe and hissing, all sorts. And I remember Ace was born and came along, and I was always hesitant. I all thought to myself, of course, the reception I'd had with the cat, which was actually called Phantom, hence why the cat in the book is called Phantom,
nice.
Was always sort of, very reticent and not that warm. But when Ace came along, honestly, he used to be able to call Phantom. Phantom would run after him, run away from me, but run after Ace. And then he had a sort of like little car that he used to sort of ride around, a motorized sort of electric vehicle or whatever. And he used to say, come and up. And like Phantom would jump up onto the bonnet. He did drive around together. And I was honestly blown away. And again, it was very inspirational, and something that I wanted to include in the book because, sort of having that interaction, especially with the children, with Ace and Bear and, some of the other kids that are named as characters in the book, was just so unique and so amazing. And as I say, again, a personal experience that I found incredibly special.
I love that. Well done, Phantom, on making some pals, but sadly not with you. So yeah, we've got a new character in the book. We've got Alfie, who joins the farm squad as well. He's a bit nervous to begin with.
Yeah, of course, because he spent sort of we'll call it the first year, or certainly the previous book, not being that close or that friendly with Ace and Bear. They're in the same class at school. So they know each other, but they don't really have a very strong relationship. And of course, Alfie's, grown up in the village of Bellevue for a very long time. He's been born there and lived there with his parents and so on. And so he is friends, or certainly acquaintances with, Olivia and Oscar, who aren't that nice, and who are definitely sort of the arch nemesis. I don't know what it is.
That makes sense.
But they don't have a great relationship with Ace and Bear. So so there's always like a little bit of hesitation in the interaction between like Isabel, Oscar, and Alfie initially. But then because Alfie's parents are vets, and they obviously interact with Gaga and Gigi and go to the farm a lot, he kind of gets strung along on this this excursion to the farm, and then all of a sudden ends up being part of it, part of the farm squad involuntarily on both parts. And then in the end, he ends up effectively sort of contributing to some of the new ideas they come up with to help combat the weather. And also he's an instrumental part in the farm festival that they put together at the end of the book.
Yeah, I have to say, I felt like you'd named this festival on purpose to catch out people like me who are trying to talk to you about it. It's the First Fruits Farm Festival. Yes,
all the F.
Yes.
Yeah, do you know what? It was just fun. Like, my little boy is at the stage now. He's 10. So he's writing his own stories and learning all about things like alliteration and all this stuff. I remember very fondly back to my time at school. English was one of my favorite subjects, and I used to always love playing with words and working stuff out. So little things like that are just, I suppose, a nod to my childhood and just making things fun and adding in a few tongue twisters here and there as well.
Yeah, you got me, man. And in the festival, it sounds like an amazing festival that I would quite like to go to. The whole gang are trying to put it on. But of course, we've got to talk about your villain, Councillor Crabbington. He's not happy.
No, he's not happy. I feel like he feels like the limelight's just been taken from him a little bit, and he's always felt a bit like that. He likes to be the centre of attention, and he likes people to talk about him and praise him. And I think he's just suffering from a little bit of low self-esteem and a lack of confidence. So for him, it's kind of like, no one's talking about me, no one's paying attention to me. So I don't like this. I don't like what's going on. But yeah, of course, Crabbington effectively just kind of wants to divert the attention from Ace and from the farm squad and from all the, animal heroes to himself. And, he goes about it in the wrong way. But I think, deep down, really and truly, he's got, the right intentions at heart.
Oh, well, thank you so much for telling us all about the second book, Ace and the Animal Heroes, the wacky weather mystery. And here's to many more, because I really do enjoy them. So thank you so much, JB.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much, Bex. You take care.
So there we go, 4 brilliant authors, Judith Eagle, Penny Boxall, Liz Hyder and JB Gill, all telling us about their new stories. Thank you so much to all of them. And of course, if you've got any books that you've been reading recently, let me know at funkidslive.com. In the meantime, make sure to like, subscribe and tell all your friends about the podcast. See you soon. Bye.